I did not see anybody from the public. So I will call the meeting to order. This is the November 4th, 2024 meeting of Wakefield Commission on Disabilities. Lois, we actually have a flag.
Good.
Right there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our mission is to address the needs and concerns of our disabled residents and provide their full participation in the activities and services of Wakefield. Janice, do we get the October 7th meeting minutes? I don't recall.
Not yet, sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So we'll hold till next month. And Lois, no changes in the finances? No. Okay. So we have a really short agenda tonight. Before we start, I'll just give you an update. Bill Renault was unable to be here tonight. He has been asked to meet with town council again at their meeting tonight. But at our last meeting, Judy, you and he had discussed potential mats to put over at the bandstand. And he said he did some investigating, and what he found is they're between $50,000 and $100,000. I know. So he said he'll start looking through some state contracts to see if he can buy them less expensive. And yeah, we'll have to investigate that. That just seems like such a lot, but hopefully he can find some that are less expensive. And also last month, we talked a little bit about voting, right, for the polls. And Bill has been in contact with Betsy Sharon. It sounds like everything is ready to go for tomorrow. She said the privacy for the accessible screen has been incorporated. He's talked to Public Works folks about the lip, Janice, that you had notated, and that should be all set. Basically, Betsy doesn't anticipate any issues because she communicated that a lot of folks who have mobility issues have already voted. They've either come downtown or they've done a mail-in voting. So she doesn't anticipate that there's going to be any issues there.
And I just want to remind everybody that when you hopefully go to vote, if you haven't voted already, you are welcome to use the AutoMark machine, which is when you enter the gym way to the left side. At least that's where it was the last time, against the far back wall. So hopefully the table has been turned so that people can't come behind. So we'll see. I haven't voted. I'll vote tomorrow. So I will see if everything is in ship shape. And please thank Bill if you are in contact with him, Marie, for doing that. And I'll do the same with Betsy.
Okay, very good.
So Betsy updated the signage also on that, or?
He didn't specifically talk about that, but if you brought it up to his attention, I'm sure they've had several conversations, so I would suspect that he did do that, but we'll know, because if Janice is going to vote tomorrow, she will.
I will.
I came down here actually and voted, so I won't be going there tomorrow.
And I think one other thing is anybody that's disabled in any way can have like myself with Lois, it's hard for her to see the ballot. I can stay in that ballot box with her.
And she could also use the AutoMark machine, because that has a screen reader that can make things very large. And you can give it a try and see if it's workable. It seems the AutoMark machine accommodates many different types of ability issues that people have, including people with visual acuity issues.
And I must say, just to echo what Janice is saying, I got a chance to try one out. We did a disability voting event, and it really, there's a ton of different ways that you can use it.
Mhm.
I was really surprised that one machine could kind of meet that many needs, but it was really cool. So even if you don't need it, it's kind of almost worth a try.
And what was like what? What were some of the things you could do with it?
You could talk to it. If, you know, like reading was, you were not able to read, but you were able to talk, you could, like Janice was saying, it made things larger. And you could, even just for people with like fine motor issues, you know, sometimes circling those little things can be tough and staying in the line. You could just kind of choose it on the screen and just touch it like a multiple choice question. And it would, you know, like print out the little dot for you. So it was just, it's really cool.
You might,
And anybody's welcome to use it, including people who feel anxious that they're not going to fill out the ballot the right way, and they want to make triple sure that the ballot actually says what they want it to say, because at the end of your voting session, it will show you everything that you have done, so you can double check your vote.
might be interesting if we could get somebody like WCAT just to run through that and show like an example of how you'd vote like that.
That's a great
Um,
idea.
That is a great idea. I was just thinking to myself, how do we get the word out about that it's there? And that's a really good idea, Dan, is to connect with WCAT.
Yeah, some people might be afraid because they don't know anything about it or it's even there.
Exactly. I never knew it was there.
Walk them right through it. And it could be a short little, you know, PSA for WCAT to run during election season.
That would be great. And maybe Betsy and some of her folks could demonstrate it. And if they're not comfortable doing that, perhaps we could get somebody from Disability Law Center that ran this project to come and demonstrate it. It's a really cool idea, Dan.
And Janice, do you think it would be worthwhile to call them tomorrow to, I mean, they could go down, at least take pictures of it, or?
I can take pictures of it. But it's called WCAT and see if they're able to do that. That's a great idea. All right.
Yeah, just call
see
them. Are you able to do that? Otherwise,
I think I can. I have a little grandson care to do tomorrow, but I should be done with that midday.
I wonder if there's already something that's been done. Like with the group
They
would
have
actually.
there's a video that is made. It's a national video because this is the national voting machine that is used. So there's a video description explaining, I don't remember how long it was, but it was part of the training. And I think that I possibly included the link to that training in the minutes. I think I would remember this, but I do not. And I'll go back and I'll check and I'll see how long that video is. Perhaps they could run the video, but I'd love to see, because we don't have to do it just on voting day. It could be that down at town hall, they just open up the machine and do a little bit of that video as well, to say, you know, with Betsy in it saying, yes, we have this machine. It is available to you. Ask anybody where it is if you can't find it, and we'll show it to you. And this is how, you know, we use it. That's a really good idea.
I wonder where it's stored. Like, is it here? Do they
don't know.
keep it here somewhere at town hall? I'm just
I
wondering.
would bet they do, because it's not very big. It comes in a, it looks like I think it looks like a goalie bag. Having had one of those in my house for a long time. It's, you know, it's a big zippered storage bag. So possibly, I think Betsy will certainly know where it's stored. Bill probably knows where it's stored. But we can ask those. If I see Betsy tomorrow, if she's around and she's not wild and busy, as sometimes she can be on voting day, I'll ask her about all of this. And I don't think it needs to be done on voting day. I think we could open the machine and at least not even if it didn't get turned on, show it. So yes, let's contact WCAT to see if they can do that. I don't know if they can go in there with cameras on voting day.
Yeah.
So I,
Right, good
you know,
point. Probably not. Probably
so I
not.
don't know about that, but we can certainly ask. And I'd love to have our people that are trained on it be part of that video. Great ideas, people.
It might be a good, if we get something, it might be a good link to put on our webpage.
I agree.
Get a hold of Ian down the WCAT, I'm sure.
We did put Ian, you said?
Yeah, Ian. He's
Okay.
the director right now, Ian
Oh,
McDermott.
okay. Okay. And we did put a link to your the Disability Law Center sent out information, and we did link to that on our page, and Jen linked to it on the voter page for Wakefield on your rights as a person with disability when it comes to voting. Saying things like you can have somebody assist you if you want. So yay. Excellent ideas.
Okay, next, Paula, update on the housing trust.
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a little bit of a kind of an update, and also just wanted to take a little bit of time just to talk about the rates of what affordable housing is in Wakefield and kind of how that fits in for people with disabilities, and kind of get your feedback. Just since I'm representing the commission on the housing trust, I want to make sure that I'm accurately kind of portraying everybody's kind of thoughts. And I think it's surprising, and I intended to have handouts, but I guess that's best for the people online. But anyway, so in Wakefield, extremely low income, it's like 30% is $20,000 for one person or 23,000 for two people. Very low income is $33,000 for one person and $38,000 for two people. And low income is 47,000 for one person and 54,000 for two people. And it can be hard. I have learned through the trust for developers to kind of meet the needs of any of those populations because they're not going to make as much money back as they would otherwise. But I think just as somebody who works with people with disabilities all day, every day, I think most of them fall in that, either extremely low income or very low income. And so, I know that's not all people with disabilities, maybe it's just my perspective. But I think it's something we want to consider just with all the construction in town and kind of how we're advocating. Because what is popular for affordable housing, and this I'm just getting off of mhp.net for Middlesex County. You have to be within like 80% or 100% of the income limit. So for one person, that's $91,400. So, that's considered low income for Middlesex County. So, I just want to, and I'm not trying to say who deserves and who doesn't deserve, and I don't, necessarily want to even get into that thought. But when I think about supporting people with disabilities, 91,000 is not a threshold that they're anywhere near. And I understand too that I support a very specific person with disabilities as well. So, but I just wanted to get some of your individual input kind of on those numbers, kind of what you think we should be advocating for as a commission. You know, from my perspective, it's how do we make sure that anybody who wants to live in Wakefield can live in Wakefield, but also anybody who's grown up here can stay here, or anybody who has families and social connections, because those are things we can't put a dollar amount on, you know, that they're able to access our community.
So in order to make that work for a developer, they would have to get creative as to, it couldn't be a traditional unit, right? They would have to get creative where it's maybe 4 bedrooms that share a living room, kitchen area, or
Right.
something like that, right? In order,
To make it worth their while, or like when we toured the Herd School, you know, we had talked about maybe, you know, they would sell 3 at like full market price. And then they could do one of these kind of low or extremely low income. And you know, I guess, yeah, just how do we advocate for kind of people throughout the whole spectrum of kind of finances?
So this would be, excuse me, an opportunity for them to become the buyer.
The buyer, the renter, even the, you know, the housing trust right now, because there's some ARPA funds left over, can give $5,000 to anybody who's moving within Wakefield or anybody who's moving to Wakefield. Kind of within, you know, making under the $92,000 a year. And that's just for a household of 1. And so, you know, there's lots of people who are going to qualify for that, and I think that's great. But again, there's only so much money to go around. And so how does somebody who's maybe collecting Social Security and maybe working 10 or 15 hours a week, you know, how do they afford to live in our town is kind of my question. But again, since I'm representing the whole commission on the trust, that's why I wanted to hear more from you.
Paula, could I ask you to repeat one thing that I missed? When you were giving the 1-person and 2-person levels of income, I missed the 1-person income for very low income.
For very low, 1 person is 33,000.
Thank you.
Can I ask if there would be a veteran's preference in any of this?
And that, so for the housing trust, for the $5,000 moving within Wakefield or moving to Wakefield,
So I think it was idle if a button wasn't pressed. I don't know if I can just.
there you go.
Affected movement.
So that's for anybody making less than $92,000 a year. I don't know, I can ask about the veterans, but I don't know.
Because I think in like the regular housing authority, don't they have a preference for veterans or spouses?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, it's a challenge because, you know, for those that are eligible for Department of Developmental Services, DDS services, and are not a priority 1, which are eligible for, you know, DDS housing or group services, it's a big population. So they're not eligible for group home yet. They're they're probably in that 20 to $33,000 range. How do they live outside of the family home?
Right. Okay, yeah, just in thinking of an inclusive community, everybody has something to offer.
And this would be independent living, Paul, correct?
Correct, yeah. Right, yeah, not necessarily under the guise of an agency.
Right.
But most likely with supports coming in,
It could be rent, it could be home ownership, it could, be a whole bunch of different models. I guess to me, it's just, I don't know if it's surprising is the right word, but how few opportunities there are for people making less than $54,000 a year.
yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, and it really we're gonna just have to be creative, and there's, we've talked about Kathy Boyle before, who is a wealth of knowledge and is getting groups of families together to basically brainstorm, and people are getting creative. So we're gonna, I don't know how you walk a developer down that path if they're, a new developer. How do you entice them to put a unit or some units in their development to, to support this population?
Right, and is it a change to? What were you saying, Dan? I'm sorry.
You get a hold of a developer that might be disabled.
And I think there are individuals that work in that area, and, and they know the ins and outs. And so, yeah, we would definitely be having to look for somebody who's well-educated, knows the different funding streams.
I don't know if it's a change to like the bylaws of Wakefield, or kind of if you want to build in Wakefield, you have to be able to provide, kind of outside of 40B or outside of kind of the governor's thing about public transportation. Is it considering changes to bylaws to make more opportunities, for every
Mhm.
10 full value units you sell? There has to be one for extremely low or very low income. I know that we have 40B in Massachusetts, which is great, but that's more for the people who are earning like the, $70,000 to $90,000 a year.
So you're thinking along the lines of like maybe in some way like incentivizing it for developers?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I don't know even if it's incentivizing it or if it's just like, how as a commission and how as part of this trust, can we make sure that, the needs of everybody in Wakefield are considered?
Mhm. I'm wondering if I'm thinking about the Nahant Street developments that are being proposed. You may or may not know this, there are two different developments that have been proposed by developers for Nahant Street. One came in with, I don't even remember how many units, 140 or something units, and another one is much smaller. I think it's about 20-ish units. And so if you drive down Nahant Street, you'll see all the "we don't want it" signs that are posted all around. It's going to add about 200 cars to Nahant Street. There are some safety concerns, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of discussion that's going on. And interestingly, at the last meeting, the neighbors have been very involved in it. One of the neighbors said, if you something like, and I'm paraphrasing, if you're going to, why don't you just make it all 40B housing if this is your interest? And if you're doing 100 and whatever, 120 units, cut it down to 40 and make all 40 of them 40B. It's like, but they're not interested in doing that because they're doing this as a profit, as large a profit as possible. But I'm wondering if there are voices that are like ours that are at those meetings that are saying, have you considered, or would you consider? It might be something for them to go back to the drawing board and say, oh, and by the way, we're also going to add 2 units that have 4 bedrooms each with a shared living room and kitchen. And the intent is for that to be for people with disabilities or something. It would help, I think, it would help the developers to be seen in a better light by the folks that would need to approve the project. So it's just something to think about, because we've talked about a little bit, and I think we're still not really clear on, like, well, how do we get in there with the developers? How do we have our viewpoints heard? And when can you do that? And I don't hear people. That's the first time I heard one person. It was one of the neighbors kind of advocating, saying, make it all 40B and just put in a few units. And, but, I've never heard anybody talk about making units that were physically accessible in those meetings. And we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen with the approval or disapproval of either of those buildings, but something for us to think about.
Absolutely. And the 40B are really kind of people who can qualify for 40B are between that $54,000, which is the low income, and the $91,000, which is that 80% threshold. And I think that's great. And that keeps a lot of people in our community who, can offer a lot of different things. I'm just thinking I think that's an important piece, but then also the less than $54,000 as well.
I think that's a really important thing that I think we need to start bringing it up with developers. Would you consider doing? And we're not talking 40B. 40B gives people a lot of privileges with what they can build and not build and where they can build it, et cetera, et cetera. So it gives people, I believe it gives them exemptions from a bunch of other laws. But I completely agree with you, is that, quite frankly, most state employees would qualify for 40B, having been a state employee for many decades. I certainly would have qualified, but it's really not that we're looking at. And so what else? What about people who are well below the 40B income, and how can we create things that would work? If you've got 4 people together with $20,000 incomes, with a rent that is affordable for them, with an $80,000 annual income between them, what would be affordable? And how can we get some units like that?
Janice, I was going to throw one other, since we're spitballing here, I'll throw one thought out here. What if there was a way for us to go in with a funding source of some sort, like a bank? To partner with them to go in with to the developer. Because if they're the ones that are paying for the project to be done, and we pitch the idea to them and say, hey, this is something we're trying to go over with, and say, might this be something that would be worthwhile to be funded? And the both of us went over and had a word with the developer, would that have some push with them?
That's an interesting idea.
I'm just thinking, if it was us going in there talking into the developer versus if it was us going in with like Wakefield Co-op and saying, hey, we'd like to talk with you about this and see what happens.
I'm also wondering if and I have no idea, this is another shot in the dark here. What if we get a group together with Wakefield Realtors and also who would potentially be showing all these apartments and houses and all of that, and have them be part of the conversation as well, because I'm guessing that they're sometimes contacted by people who are looking for housing like this, and have little or nothing to show them. So maybe, and we can talk about things like we can fill those rooms in in those condos or apartments or whatever they are. It's a really interesting idea. And Wakefield Cooperative Bank is known for doing projects with Wakefield. I think they only have like one other branch, right, in Linfield.
Think
And
so.
so they have done grants. They were the folks who helped to. They have very small grant, but they gave us a small grant to help fund the accessible playground that used to exist at Walton School. So they had an interest in the issue, and they certainly have an interest in Wakefield. But
Thank you. Thanks, Paula. I know it's complicated and we just can't get our arms around it. I'll try to get on Kathy Boyle's website to see if she's got different models posted. She would be someone that would be able to guide us, but she's just so busy, right? We just really just can't go to her.
We would even, sorry to interrupt, organize like an hour with her and have like Bill come and some of the developers, or maybe that's something I should to the housing trust.
I think that'd be a great idea.
Does the Housing Trust have funding? Because I mean, she would certainly, if we're paying her,
Yeah, right.
right? I mean, she is running a somewhat of a nonprofit there.
Right, yep, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Could, if she just needs a stipend to come to a meeting, could we use some of our funds for that?
We could probably do that. The other thing I was thinking is she runs these meetups on Monday nights. And I'm trying to think of, the format is at the beginning, she usually goes over different housing options and then people break off into groups. Because the other piece of what she does is not only is she giving you different ideas for funding options, but then, some people have a loved one and they need other people to go in to do this with, and they don't know of anybody else. So she breaks off into groups to kind of let you get to meet one another, and this is all done on Zoom. And she has this very extensive questionnaire you fill out, and she tries to match up families. So if somebody wanted to get a group of 4 together, of similar needs or whatever the case may be, traits, she's trying to help you do that as well. I just haven't been to the meetings for a while. We've got the group. We just, we need the ideas. We need the ideas.
Now, is this something you run by the zoning board of appeals?
I would think that
B?
probably a lot of different stakeholders would have to be involved within the town in order to make this happen. That, I suppose if it's purchased, the housing authority wouldn't get involved, right, Paula?
Right.
Right, yeah. It would be individuals that would be purchasing the units.
Maybe it's even, like Kathy do a presentation for like town council and the Board of Zoning and Appeals. just to kind of educate people, because I also think if people have a little bit more knowledge about the disability community, which is, I feel like, what our commission can offer, then they can kind of apply it to their building codes and, you know, those different things. Just our job to maybe educate them on the variety of possibilities and the number of people who fall into the extremely low income, very low income, low income.
All right, let's think about this, and at our next meeting, maybe we can set some goals or trajectories to try to make some movement on this. I'll talk to a couple of folks and see, and go get on Kathy's website. She's been doing it.
Marie, what is her website?
It's Autism Housing Pathways. I can probably send you a link. So these meetups that I talk about that she does on Monday nights, they're like $5. You get online, you pay $5, and that gets you entrance into the meeting. And she's doing a autism housing. She calls it family action meetups. Monthly opportunity for families to get together, learn about 2 housing models per month, and chat in depth. She does a 15-minute overview of the housing for people with developmental disabilities in Massachusetts, a brief video of a housing model, followed by 20 to 25 minutes of breakout groups. And then she does the same with the second housing model. And she's also hosting, I think it started a couple of weeks ago, Saturday mornings, like 6 Saturdays in a row. She does 3 hours, 9 to 12, very intense. Housing models, if, you know, how to fund it, given individual circumstances, SSI, SSDI, whatever their income is. She's really knowledgeable, very, very knowledgeable.
Maybe folks could, if you're in the mood, join one of the meetings. That would be interesting to be on one of those meetings. And then we can gather back and go from there and figure out, could she come to one of our meetings where we've pre-gathered some other players,
Yeah.
maybe the banks, and whoever else we can think of that might join us.
All right, I'll look and see when the next few meetings are that she's doing, so that, and I'll send that out to everybody. That way people can, if they're interested, join it. And it's Monday nights at a time that's convenient for you. All right, thank you, Paula. When is your next, is there another meeting of the,
We were supposed to meet on Wednesday, actually, and it just got canceled. So maybe in December.
okay? And then, Lorna, your update on the housing program
Well,
project?
there's not much to talk about because we've only had like one meeting. But they're developing a survey, which they'd like to disseminate starting, I think Friday, the 11/8, yeah, Friday. So it's going to be asking people for their views on whether they live in Wakefield, if they're trying to move to Wakefield, or what barriers have they come across. So you will all probably be receiving a copy of the survey, as we're supposed to disseminate it to as many people we possibly can so they can get the feedback on it. Once, right now, the survey hasn't yet been finalized. It's gonna be finalized very soon because they want to start passing it out around by Friday. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of information to share with you. I think more information will be coming once we get these surveys back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And so we have to figure out, like, once the survey is published publicly, can we put it on our website? Like ask Jen
That's a
to
pretty good
put
question.
it on the commission
I could
website?
ask Noah if that's or Stephanie. Was it Samantha?
Samantha, I think.
Samantha. Yeah.
Samantha Elliott.
Yes, yes. I could ask them if that could be posted on the
Yeah,
website.
because,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure they want as many people as possible to complete it. And so it's how do you get it out there? What is their plan to disseminate? Does anybody else have anything else, new business that they would like to discuss?
I'll just mention that I'm going to be part of the Winchester Hospital
Right.
group that is going to be meeting. They only meet quarterly. The first meeting's in December, and I initially was representing the Commission on Disability. Now I'm just representing Wakefield because it was another person from another Commission on Disabilities that is going to join in the group. And it is the group that makes a decision. They help to make decisions about what community benefits the hospital will work on in and around the communities that they serve, Wakefield being one of those communities. It was something that happened with one of our attorney generals many decades ago, saying that hospitals are required to serve the community, and how are you going to do that? So this is the commission that helps to oversee what the projects will be. So they really didn't have anybody representing disability issues, and now I'll be part of that. Obviously, we'll continue to represent this issue as well, along with another person who's going to be joining. So first meeting's mid-December, and I'll let you know if there's anything that comes out of that that would be of interest.
Do you know
also-
what town, Janice, I'm
I'm
sorry
sorry?
do you know what town the person from the Commission on Disabilities is from?
I'm thinking that it might have been Medford, but I'm not positive. I'll find out and I'll let you know at after we have our first meeting. I also wanted to mention that since people are in person, many of us, I think that it would be a good idea if you all said your name, since our names are up at the top under our little Zoom pictures. So if you would go around and say your name so that it would be recorded.
Oh, good idea. So Marie Ray, co-chair.
Lorna Davidson Conley, co-chair.
Charles Tuttle.
Paula Thompson.
Paul Paglarani.
Thank you.
Well, if there is nothing else, it is 8:46 approximately.
7.
Marie, I think you bring up there's no 101 this year. Remember
I
Wakefield 101?
Is there, have you heard that there isn't one?
It canceled it. There's maybe next spring.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not know that. I wonder why. Okay, thanks.
Oh, I also forgot to mention that I've been in touch with some of the folks that through the organization that runs the program on the safety program, the individual safety program. And they were in the middle of having their statewide conference, and she said she would get back to me after that. Paula, that's the folks that, and it wasn't Triangle, it was, blanking out on the name of the organization that I read their newspaper every month. But anyway, so when she's catches her breath, she's going to get back to me, and we can see if there's some programming that we'd like to do in Wakefield.
Yeah, that would be really nice. I mean, Triangle does do something for you, or I forget what they call it.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's the same program, and I think that Triangle started it. So I know that through my work with Department of Public Health. So Triangle started it, and they were working with the Boston Public School Systems and other folks in the neighborhood. It's phenomenal training, and the folks who do the presentation are people with disabilities, and they are pretty awesome. So I've seen the Triangle piece of it. I've not seen the other folks, the awareness and action. That's the word I was looking for, the awareness and action program. So I will, I'll let you know what's happening now, because I haven't been part of it for a couple of years.
And so your thought is we would bring it into Wakefield, so
Yeah,
see
yeah, we
see if they would be interested in coming to Wakefield to do
And
something.
see where it would be appropriate to do it in Wakefield. Is it something that we might do in the school system, in the high school? Is it where and how and what kind of groups do they work with, so that we could figure out if we could get, and it could be a multi-town group that we get together. I don't really know what the options are for their audiences, so I'd like possibly see if somebody could come to one of our meetings and do a little, 10-minute description of what it is and what are the options, so that we could think about how we might want to pull something together for people in Wakefield.
That would be awesome. Okay, and for those that are interested, update on Inspire Cafe. The Boys and Girls Club announced at their gala last weekend, hopefully it opening in December. They hope early December, but we'll see how that goes, so.
What was the,
Congratulations.
Spire Cup? Does anybody able to attend that in Stoneham? How'd it go?
was there, yeah.
It was great. It was two really great games.
Yeah.
I don't know how much money that outside of, there was a huge donation by the Trachtenberg family.
Sure.
But they also had, Inspire had a little pop-up there. So we did make some money there, but I didn't ask Rebecca how much, but it was well attended. Hopefully next year it even grows even more. This has been the first year and we've learned a lot. And yeah, it was two really great games. The girls tied 1-1 or 2-2, I can't remember, but it was tied. And then the Wakefield boys won it by one goal.
Nice.
So they got the cup, and next year maybe the girls won't tie, and they'll also get a cup.
Right.
And then Wakefield will bring the cup back, and whoever gets
Okay.
the wins it that year, then they get the cup for the year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It was very nice.
Okay, well, we managed to have another good meeting. Thank you, everybody. So it's 7:50, so we will adjourn, and our next meeting will be Monday, December 2nd. So we'll be on Zoom. That's the plan, right? Until maybe this spring. To adjourn the meeting. Yeah, somebody want to make a motion?
I will.
Thanks, Lois. And second? Second. Thanks, Paula. Okay, have a good evening, and we'll see you all soon.